You are listening to Waffle, the bite-sized podcast with Paul Jenkins. First broadcast on Rossendale Radio on the 23rd of August 2020. This week, Paul celebrates Waffle, the podcast's first birthday, by catching up with its first guest, Rosa Wright. She talks about how life in lockdown has changed the way she works. And we hear samples from her new collection, For All My Mothers.
104.7 Rossendale Radio.
Hello there, it's Paul Jenkins here with the Weekend Wind Down, and technology allowing, we now have our guest on the line. Rosa, are you there with us?
I am indeed. Hello, Paul. You all right?
Oh, I'm all good. Thank you very much. For those of you that remember, the show is a year old today, and Rosa was our very first guest here on the Weekend Wind Down. And it's been quite a busy year for both of us. Well, just remind everybody whereabouts you are at the moment.
I'm in sunny Salford.
Yes, and it is sunny. It's sunnier than here. We've got clouds over here in Rossendale, it's all right, but you know the rain is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned, we've all been busy bunnies, and I know that you were telling me, because we tried to do this interview a little bit earlier in the week, and technology failed us, didn't it? Mm-hmm. It's we got as far. We recorded what can only be described as a very scrappy interview where the phone line kept cutting out. So we thought we're going to go for it. Let's play live and see what we can do. Do you want to tell everyone because you've written a book in the meantime since you came into the studio last to see us?
I have indeed. Yeah. So I've written my first ebook, my first collection of poetry available for download off Amazon. It's called For All My Mothers.
Fantastic. For all of your mothers, which we'll get into a little bit, I think, about the kind of like, because that's for all of your mothers sounds as if it's a particularly sort of, most people generally go, well, I've got one, maybe two, but it sounds like you seem to have listed quite a few in there. How did that come about, that you were going to be writing a book?
So I, like most people, have spent lockdown kind of in a bit of boredom, a bit of a funk, but I came across a Write an ebook in 6 weeks course via Heidi Hinder Chadwick and Skylar Grace. It came into my inbox very fortuitously, and obviously I've been writing and performing for such a long time, particularly in Greater Manchester as well, and it seems daft that I've not already got a book out, but this seemed like the perfect opportunity to put pen to, not paper specifically, but get something down. And they provided a really cool structure, a really interesting process with some interesting exercises, meditations, and a supportive Zoom group where you could have a chat with people. And through the process, I thought originally I was going to write some short stories, but then it naturally came out. It was like, no, I'm going to write a poetry collection, and that's for how For All My Mothers kind of happened. So it was like a 6-week thrash with some interesting meditations in the meantime. Yeah.
It does sound like that actually, it's sort of intensely you've managed to make this collection come together, and I remember you telling me earlier on in the week when we were speaking that actually it was quite a difficult thing for you as an artist, because most of your work, you do lots of community theatre work and working with other people, and it must have been really hard for you to kind of take yourself out of that and work in a completely different way in this isolation we've all been in.
Yeah, definitely. Because, you think being a writer, you're kind of a bit of a loner. And in some respects, I can be quite introspective, introverted and things like that. But really, I love to create with people, as you rightly said. So I love the fact that every time I go and perform somewhere, I generally write a new poem. And that's what keeps me fresh, because I don't like to perform the same material all the time. And I like to keep it going. And, the last thing I did in public was the Home 2020, the open exhibition in Manchester. Yeah. And that was amazing. And being out in public and being out with people it's really the thrill. I'm a performance poet. So having all of that stopped, it's left a real gulf, and it's such a social thing for me. So having that kind of social thing cut off was, as you say, quite hard.
It is, and I didn't realise just how much I was missing it until somebody. Bizarrely, I've got a gig in a couple of weeks' time, and it's not a massive gig. It's in a tiny little pub somewhere. I think it's a bit of a fundraiser for a charity gig, but there's going to be some actual people there, and that feeling of elation of I'm going to be back in front of some people. It's surprising how much we're missing it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
Now you're going to be sharing some stuff from us from the book during the course of the show. But as you know from when you came in to visit us, that we ask people to choose some music as you go through the show. And last time you went for all Beatles, and you've limited yourself to just the one this time. Do you want to tell us why you've chosen From Me to You?
Well, I think maybe just because I'm a big fan of the Chuckle Brothers and it's nearly To Me to You. But it just seemed like a nice thing for last time to say From Me to You. And I guess maybe it's what the book is. The book is from me to you, to all those people who are the you. So that's why I chose it.
Fantastic. It's John, Paul and the crew with From Me to You.
At home, in the office, in the car, wherever you are, you can listen to 104.7 Rossendale Radio.
It's Paul Jenkins here on the Weekend Wind Down, and this is the Waffle segment. We are speaking to our guest, Rosa Wright, who is on the line from Salford with us, and her book, For All My Mothers, is available now on Amazon. And Rosa, I think you're going to share, to kick us off in this section, just to share one of the poems from the book. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. And this is a poem about, well, I'll let you introduce it, actually.
Okay, so the book is for all my mothers, but this is specifically for my mum, and it's called Ma. Somewhere between Jean Harlow and Deirdre Barlow, you glow. British gas blue, Dole office grey, Argos red. You let me play in the brown wash basket as I row out to sea, over socks and underwear. You humour me and let me use the yellow bowl for party food and popcorn to make a mess. You bring home rolls of printer paper. I pick the pocked lines to strip the holy edges and scribble endlessly. Stiff felt tips licked, piercing and squeaking. But you draw the line at glitter glue on my tongue to make a Mel B stud. I love you like water and sausage rolls. I love you like books, like blood.
How did those recollections come back to you? Because it's almost like a list of faded memories, I suppose, of little bits and pieces from childhood that have come together.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but I'm a trainee psychotherapist, so picking around in my childhood is generally a frequent activity of mine. But when doing the book and in the 6-week course, which it will be available to do again if people want to look it up, if anybody's interested in putting a book together, you can find the course online. It was a case of getting to the why of the book. Why are you writing it? Why are you writing it? And it's a meditation, or it's an invitation to really get into your process of why are you writing it. And I threw some bits out thinking, oh, it's this, it's that, oh, I've always wanted to do a book, blah, 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 blah. And when I drilled down, you have this sort of light bulb moment of why am I doing this, and I realised it's because I just wanted to do something for my mum. And when I thought about it, it just, all this stuff naturally kind of came up, really.
I think it is. I mean, you mentioned it, that idea of being in the washing basket, I remember, is one that really kind of connects with me, because I think at some point or other we've all been put in a box or a washing basket and pushed around like it was a boat or something like that.
Yeah, certainly.
And but it's the things, it's the items, I think, that always kind of bring you back. If anyone has got the same green colander as my mum, right, that she's had for 30 years for straining spaghetti, is little bits like that. I go, that's my mum's colander. That's it, but it's
absolutely,
and it brings back that memory for me. It's
yeah, absolutely. It's like if God forbid anything happened to them, but if in the will, leave the money, just give me the yellow party ball, because that's mum. That's what I connect with, It
is. It's where the memories are, and there's certain things about all of us, I think. And I think I asked you about this before, because you're going to share another one about family in a bit. But what was the what was the reaction of parents when you wrote about something so personal?
They were pretty chuffed, to be honest. And I was getting ready. I was getting really geared up to tell them, and I was like, "Oh yeah, well, I've made this book," and I was getting ready to give them the big surprise. But me and my mum happened to share like a Kindle account, and she'd seen the book pop up on our Kindle, and she went, "Oh, what's this?" And she and my dad sat and read it in bed, and they were just chuffed to bits. I think they were really touched, and they really liked seeing something in print. And there was something quite special about having something to hold in your hand and say, "Oh yeah, that's real." I mean, with a print book, you get the real solid thing, but still having something in your hand that's there and that's touchable, particularly at a time when we can't touch, I think is really important. So yeah, they were dead positive. They were just like, oh, that's really nice. Oh, cool.
I love the serendipity of the fact that they've just suddenly gone, I believe our Rosa's written a book here.
Yeah.
just come across it one day. Now your next music choice is I don't think, I'm racking my brains, I don't think anyone's actually requested the Spice Girls, and it's a travesty that nobody's requested the Spice Girls in the entirety of our 52 weeks on the air. But you've chosen one, and obviously you've gone with a theme, haven't you?
I have indeed. I'm a sucker for a theme. And particularly as in the poem I do mention Mel B, that good Leeds girl that she is. I absolutely had to pick it, and because it's for all my mothers, I've picked Mama by the Spice Girls.
Here it is.
Playing more of the songs you like. This is 104.7 Rossendale Radio.
Okay, it's 104.7 Rossendale Radio. It's Paul Jenkins here with the Weekend Wind Down, and this is the final part of my interview, sadly with Rosa Wright, who was our first ever guest on the show. She's come back to join us this year to celebrate this anniversary, and we'll talk about birthdays in a little bit more detail in a second. But you're talking about your book For All My Mothers. Now, interestingly, that kind of definition of mothers, you've spread the net a little bit wider, haven't you?
Well, again, as I mentioned, I'm a therapist, but it's really that idea that anybody can be a mother and we can mother anybody. There's a couple of things behind it. So there's the therapy angle, which is like, there's a Donald Winnicott who talked about the ordinary devoted mother, and it's the fact that mums just pay attention to kids and they do stuff for kids without even thinking about it in a very ordinary, imperfect, but very devoted way. So there's a bit about that sense of ordinary devotion is something I really wanted to capture. And then the other side of it, it's a misremembered quote from Buddha, naturally.
Of course, yeah, just throw that one in there.
Course,
Buddha's always good for a review, I think.
He's not bad. He's got some quite pithy things to say, that fella. There's a couple of quotes. The one that I sort of misremembered is the idea that treat the world as if they are your mother, which is the idea that it's really kind of that fella in Starbucks to go to work so you can get the coffee. He doesn't have to. And everybody's kind of choosing to participate in life, and he's facilitating you getting food, drink, whatever. It's kind of the bus driver to show up. It's kind of everybody to do those little things that keep life ticking over. So in that sense, again, there's that little bit of ordinary devotion. And then if you buy the book, which hopefully everyone will,
we will.
In the quote that I've actually used that I could find was one that's I'll get it in front of me now. Like the mother of the world, touch each being as your beloved child. So again, it's not just one way. It's the idea that motherhood doesn't just work one way. It's not just us getting mothered. We also share lives and attachments and love and moments of intimacy and preciousness with everybody, whether it's men, women, children, and anybody who's important in our life can be seen as a mother. I've been lucky to have not just my mum, but so many mothers, whether it's through therapeutic relationships, through me looking after people at work. I work in quite therapeutic style jobs, and even creation can be a motherhood process of I've created the book. The book is kind of a baby. And so it's that real tenderness of attachment. It's this sense of anything that's important to us, or any person who's important to us, and anybody we're important to, we share some kind of devotion, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, and that leads us on to your next poem you're going to share, because it's not a traditional mother, is it?
Certainly not. It's my dad's. It seemed only right to do Ma and Pa. But it's also because, as you mentioned about birthdays, it's coming up my birthday next week as well, and it does.
Is it? You hadn't mentioned.
Well, it is my birthday next week, and it does take two to make a baby sometimes. It can take 3 or more sometimes, depending on how you do it. But I've got one of my dad as well as the other half, really.
And so this one is called Pa.
Yeah, it's Pa Fumes. It's a wallpaper steamer, and the feel of dried paint, thick and crusted on blue overalls, on skin. It's the scent of fascination, the toolbox, sweet and metallic, unnameable electronic bits, angled round dental mirrors and blue-handled hooks that don't touch teeth. It's permanent marker, on the folder I customised when I was 10 with pictures of Homer J, which you still use, and the Mars bar coloured carp which I drew, also in Sharpie, crumpled but kept underneath. Speaking of fish, it's tanks and bubbles and ponds wound around empty nets, and the sound of me squealing at the tang of rusted tin and maggots. You are no pipe tobacco smoke cliché, though you do wear slippers, size 9, blood type O. No. Dad, my pa, and I love you. If we could bottle that, we'd be rich and never work again.
It's such a lovely tribute to him, and
thank you.
It was. There's little bits about parenting that from the parents' point of view, I'm sure you want to bottle as well, but you can't. You just can't grab hold of them. They slip through your fingers. But I think it's what you've done with just memories and bringing them together in those two pieces. I'd love to see them actually in print side by side with each other. If only there was some sort of mechanism where we could get hold of them. Is it
looking for you, Paul?
Amazon? So if we go to Amazon, search for All My Mothers, I'll be able to put that up on the Facebook page, won't I?
You can indeed. So it's For All My Mothers and my name, Rosa Wright, and you will be able to find it.
Fantastic. And there will be a link up on the Facebook page within the next few minutes while we have a listen to your final song choice. Interestingly, your final song choice, because you may have mentioned that it's your birthday coming. Is it next week coming up?
Yeah, next week.
And it's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a semi-important one. Yeah, I'm going to be the big 30.
But the decades, they just roll by. It's going to be perfectly fine. And as I mentioned before, the 30s are great. They're all wonderful. They're filled with parties from one moment to the next, and it's just smiles all the way through the entire decade.
Thank you so much. That's very reassuring,
I know.
Paul.
I never lie on the radio. But your song choice, one of our biggest listeners, Karen King, she always gets in contact every single week. She's a brilliant listener to the show, and she said, "Can you please play, because your show is a year old? Can you play Happy Birthday by Altered Images, please?"
Oh, good taste, Karen.
It's absolutely great taste. It's almost so. What would be your choice if you were going to choose something for this particular moment?
Well, were I to choose something for this particular moment, Paul, it might have to be Happy Birthday by Altered Images.
Well, so there you go.
Big up, Karen. I like your vibes.
Yeah, it was pre-planned, Karen. I've got to say, she got there before you. But yeah, we will be playing Altered Images for you. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been lovely to catch up, and thank goodness. To be honest, I'm kind of glad the technology failed, because it meant I got another chance to chat to you today.
Me too, Paul. Me too. Long live the downfall of technology, but not radio technology. We kind of need that one. But no, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you again. Can I just say a quick hello to my mum and dad, and congratulate them on me making it to 30 as well. and as I said, if anybody wants to check out the ebook course, do Google "Write an ebook in 6 weeks" with Heidi Hinder Chadwick and Skylar Grayson, or Your Creative Voice. Do check it out. It's been really helpful for me.
I'll see if I can find it myself and put it underneath on the Facebook post that we put up.
Oh, you're a babe, Paul. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Really, really good to speak to you again.
And next time it will be in person. We shall make sure that definitely happens.
I hope so. Even if we're waving from 2 metres away, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Rosa. This is Altered Images. Happy birthday.
104.7 Rossendale Radio.
And there you go. That was our birthday show on the Weekend Wind Down. Waffle, the Bite-Side podcast, is also now a year old as well. And I want to say thank you, first of all, to Rosa for coming back on the show, updating us. And it was lovely to hear that she's got a brand new book out. Please do check it out online. It's For All My Mothers. But also, it's a really nice time to reflect on the fact that we've managed a year of this. When we first started, we didn't know where it would head. We didn't know if we've had enough guests, if we'd have enough interest. But having spoken to so many people from so many different walks of life, talking about words and discussing language and getting to the real heart of why people write things down in the first place, it's just been absolutely amazing. Just to recap, we've spoken to politicians and we've spoken to stand-up comedians, poets, playwrights, ghost writers, authors of books, authors of textbooks. We've talked to people about education. We've spoken to children about the books they're reading and teachers about the books that they're reading to them. There are so many different areas of language, and it is an amazing privilege to be able to celebrate that every single week with you on Waffle, the Bite-Sized Podcast. We will be back with another guest next week, and we will continue to do so for as long as anybody is listening. Thank you so much again for your time. I want to say thank you to all of our colleagues at Rossendale Radio for allowing us to broadcast every week, and of course to Melanie Kemp for all of her hard work editing the podcast each week for your enjoyment. We will see you very, very soon.